It's this way every year. This argument comes up every single year. I can't remember, was it Bruce Willis? Bruce Willis finally came out and said it's not a Christmas movie, but I'll actually have to look that up for confirmation.
But to be fair, and I'm not being mean here, Bruce Willis is also losing his mind, so he doesn't know what he's saying.
God, Tricky, you had to go one step too far.
Wow. He got there before me. He got there before me.
I mean, my word, Tricky. How heartless can you be?
If you haven't seen on my Facebook page, I have the Hans Gruber advent calendar that each day he just gets closer and closer to the ground.
You are listening to Trophy Horse with your hosts, Tricky Mick, Alex, I Yield to No One, Sid, and Ender Phoenix.
Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Trophy Horses episode 601. We did it. We survived, and we're on the road now to 700. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I know what you're thinking. My voice, first, usually means one thing. Tricky's not here. But you'd be wrong this week, because Tricky is here. But look, I try to give Tricky the best advice I always can. I told him not to party super hard at the 600 after party that we did, and he just didn't listen. He's still feeling the effects of the after party, but Tricky, you're here and you're trying to soldier through.
Yeah, I just I'm just way too tired to lead the show. I know we've stumbled over my words and whatnot, and Matt put together such a fantastic agenda that I didn't want to mess it up. I looked it over, didn't see many typos, so I didn't want to mess up Matt's flow.
Well, Tricky, that was very thoughtful of you. I'm sure that Matt, who's also here with us, appreciates that.
You guys had a 600 after party?
Yeah, listen, it was only for people that have done 50 episodes or more.
I need to
don't feel bad. Don't feel bad, Matt. I don't think I was there.
See, Tricky, now everyone thinks we're gatekeepers. No, we just got together and watched Christmas Vacation. That's what we did. No, actually, that's what I did yesterday. It's that time of the year. It's that time of the year, folks. Watch those holiday movies.
I don't think I've ever seen that movie.
It's probably. I would say it's probably the best Christmas movie.
No, the best Christmas movie, hands down, is.
You're gonna say Die Hard, aren't you?
Oh my God! Don't even get me started.
Wait, what? Hey, what movie? What movie did you say?
If Die Hard is a Christmas movie, so is Lethal Weapon.
It is not a Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas theme he gave back to Hans Gruber. I mean, it was bullets. He gave back bullets, but it was a gift.
Yeah, I will say my stance is it takes place during Christmas, but is not a Christmas movie compared to Home Alone, which does take place during Christmas, but is all about family togetherness and Christmas time. So, I'm sorry, Die Hard is not a Christmas movie.
Thank you!
He was together with his wife and trying to make sure she had an enjoyable Christmas party. I mean, what's wrong with that?
The overriding theme of the movie is not Christmas, though.
It's an action movie that takes place during Christmas.
We're just going to have to agree to disagree. I'm siding with Tricky on this one.
That is a first, so I'm going to have to take that one.
Yeah, you better. I had this argument with guys at work the other day. I was outnumbered, but I stood my ground firmly.
Well, it's this way every year. This argument comes up every single year. I can't remember, was it Bruce Willis? Bruce Willis finally came out and said it's not a Christmas movie, but I'll actually have to look that up for confirmation.
But to be fair, and I'm not being mean here, Bruce Willis is also losing his mind, so he doesn't know what he's saying.
God, Tricky, you had to go one step too far.
Wow.
He got there before me. He got there before me.
I mean, my word, Tricky. How heartless can you be?
If you haven't seen on my Facebook page, I have the Hans Gruber advent calendar that each day he just gets closer and closer to the ground.
Now, I've seen that before. That actually looked pretty cool.
Within all of this holiday goodness we're trying to spread, the festivities, I didn't introduce Yield, but you've heard his voice, and you know that he is there's a hill that he will die on, and that one is that Die Hard's not a Christmas movie.
Yeah, I will definitely die on that hill. So Tricky not wanting to stumble over his words because he's tired. What would be different than any other episode?
You know, I knew somebody was going to make that joke.
But hey, man, you lob them in there, I'm sending them over the fence.
Well,
I'm leaving that alone.
Well, one thing we never leave alone. Oh, did you have something you want to add there, Tricky?
Oh, no, Canlis is in the chat. He says, look, no sexy beast. And he says, Die Hard is most definitely a Christmas movie.
I got to find that quote. I'm pretty sure it's Bruce Willis.
It's okay.
And
you
Dex,
can be wrong.
Dex also says 100% a Christmas movie.
That's fine. More people on the wrong side. That's okay.
Well, so far, it's 4-2, just in the last 10 minutes.
We will convert you, because you're all wrong. You've been blinded. By just because it brings up Christmas, it's a Christmas movie. If that's the case, all right, so answer me this then. If that's the case, is Sound of Music a Christmas movie?
I don't remember Sound of Music enough to make a qualified answer on that.
I would have had to have watched Sound of Music, and I hate watching old-timey movies like that.
It's got to be 35 years since I've seen that movie.
I mean, because if that's your logic, then Sound of Music is a Christmas movie.
Okay.
Even though it's a musical.
All right.
Batman Returns is a Christmas movie.
See, it's just so wrong. No.
So, yeah, according to Bruce Willis, not a Christmas movie.
As I said, I know
and he
exactly
is John McClane, and he's worth at least 10 people. You know, he's worth 20 people. So Yield and I are up 22 to like
Just
4.
like the guy who invented GIF saying that it's GIF, the inventor is wrong.
As since
hold on. Kayla says it has children in it that ask, "Are you coming home from Christmas?" So yes, it is. And Kayla also says, and Batman Returns is also.
Oh, so disappointed, humanity.
No. It like I said, my reasoning is it takes place during the time, but it's not about Christmas itself. Whereas Home Alone is very much about Christmas.
You're just as wrong about this as you are CM Punk. Just let it go.
Hey, folks, you know who said CM Punk wasn't coming back to WB? Tricky Mick. You know who did say he was coming back to WB? Alex. Who was right there? Alex.
No,
all right.
Listen. I admitted I was wrong about him coming back.
No, you didn't. You have not ever admitted you were wrong.
I
in your
did.
entire life.
I said I was wrong about him coming back. I did not see that happen. I admitted that. All right. Host a show.
You gonna stop haranguing me?
Christmas movie in him?
I'm just reading the chat. Like I'm just the messenger here.
Well, you know what? Caneless was talking about sexy beast, and of course we're that sexy with our trophy counts. You know, Matt can be that because of his Soundwave collection, but us because of our trophy counts. Tricky, would you like to share your trophy count, sir?
I am level 896, total trophies of 29,531 with 819 platinums.
I am level 499 with a total trophy count of 9,601, platinum count of 165 in 164 games. Yield.
Let me get back to that page. Where am I at? There we go. I'm looking at different tabs. I am a newly minted 504 with a trophy count of 9904 and a new platinum count of 180.
Matt, I believe you're up next, sir.
You know, I didn't think of it that way. All my sound waves technically are real trophies, and I think I have more sound waves than I have PlayStation trophies. So there's that. I am level 220 with a total trophy count of 1,309. I got 2 more by some of what I was playing this week.
I guess we'll chat about that. We'll try to guess. We'll sleuth out what you got trophies in. Sid, the last member of this party, is level 879, total trophy count of 26,067, and a platinum count of 820, which puts him still 1 platinum above Tricky Mick. You got anything to say to the Alpha, Tricky? Sid?
He's not the Alpha. I'm coming for you.
He's got more platinums than you.
Does he though?
I mean, his number is larger than yours, yes.
But is it really?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's 820.
Or
Yours is
maybe
819.
maybe I'm just holding back for right now.
And he's got more platinum trophies, and he's lower in levels, and he's got 300 or more than 300 fewer total trophies. So he's just, I'm telling you, you might not admit it, but you've left the door open for Sid. You were so worried about Daryl for so long, and you left the door open for Sid. You didn't even see it coming.
Do you want me to go pop 2 platinums right now so I can shut you up? I can have it done by the time we're done talking about what we're playing.
My man, if you are able to get Pop's platinum trophies, you are awake enough to host the show. So
I actually
boom.
disagree there because those type of platinums doesn't take
just
much
gotta
more
hold
than
a
a button press.
he still
hold
has
the
enough.
button.
He still has enough energy to tie rubber bands around his analog sticks.
He doesn't need to. He programs them into his controller.
That was only for Mortal Kombat. Leave it alone.
And every Mortal Kombat after that.
Oh, so
Is that why you're playing Mortal
cheated.
Kombat 11?
I'm not playing Mortal Kombat 11. I'm playing Mortal Kombat 1.
Well, oh, Mortal Kombat 1, sorry. I lost track of which Mortal Kombat we were on. But hey, you know what? It's a good segue there, Tricky, into what we've been playing. Tricky, since you're not hosting this week and usually you go last, what have you been playing?
I've been playing Division 2. They released their holiday event, so I log in once a day, do the quick event, which takes, anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. And then I log off of that. I've been playing Mortal Kombat 1, as we discussed. I finished the story mode, and now I'm playing the invasions. But apparently I might not get the invasions done because they go in seasons, and I only have 3 days left in this season, and I'm way behind. So, I've been busting those out, but I'm tired. And I've been playing Fortnite, but not the Fortnite you think. They released Lego Fortnite, which is it's pretty cool, honestly. It's I don't want to say like tower defense, but it's almost like an RTS where you got to build your town, whatnot. Zombies will attack, but the zombies are skeletons. It's not a battle royale. It's there's not a lot of interaction. People can jump in and out of your world at any time. I do have a world that if you guys are playing, you can jump in and help out. And also I've been playing Rocket Racing, which is because Psyonix is now part of Epic. They have their own racing, which is pretty damn cool.
Did you see, not to cut you off,
Dad?
their Psyonix crossover vehicle for Rocket League and Fortnite?
I have not seen the vehicle, but I do know that any vehicles you've unlocked in Rocket League do unlock in Rocket Racing.
So this car is pretty sweet, but they want $39 for it.
That's insane.
I just want to throw that out there. Speaking of Psyonix, maybe
Is it $39 for the car, or is it like a package? Like you get other stuff with it?
you get different colors of the car, different color trim, but it's the same car.
Okay. I'll look into it.
$39.
That sounds a little
It's-
pricey for just a car.
It's 3,900 credits, so that's $39.
I don't know.
Epic's got to make up that money somehow.
Look at who we're talking about. It's Epic. Like, this is where you go to be microtransactions to death. They don't stone you at Epic. They don't tar and feather you. They literally beat you to death for microtransactions.
I'm going to look into that, because I think that, I'm not saying you're
Go
lying or
ahead.
anything, but that sounds a little off.
Go look. I looked at it the other day because I wanted to see what this car looked like. I saw something about it online. And I was like, ooh, let me see what this car looks like.
From comments from the chat, Garrett says, my lad was playing a new racing mode in Fortnite earlier tonight. And Dos Andreas, welcome to the chat. I don't recognize the name.
Hey, Dos Andres, how you doing?
Okay, well, Matt recognizes you. Sorry.
The Channel 3
Says, I'm about to buy Baldur's Gate on Xbox sometime this week. Buy it on PlayStation. but I'm kind of hooked on Fortnite right now.
Just don't listen to him, man. Buy where you want to play.
Yeah. I think that's all I've been playing. Other than playing Division on the mobile, but I'm not going to talk about that until the full release.
Man, you just can't get enough.
Honestly, I'm going to say this.
How good can a shooter like that be on mobile?
Listen, I did not have high hopes for it at all. At all. It is actually a decent shooter game. I'm not blowing smoke up anybody's ass. If you like the Division, you will like this game. I promise you.
Is it just the Division?
It's the Division Resurgence. It's in beta. I don't think you could just get it.
That doesn't help me, Tricky.
I'm sorry. I know there's codes going out if you want to try it.
We could talk about it later.
Yeah. Yield, do you know what this car is? Because I'm looking on Epic right now and I don't see it on the store.
It's under Rocket League, and it's on its own tab under the store.
But it's actually in Rocket League itself.
Yes.
Okay, it might not be on the store. All right, let me launch Rocket League and see. Good. I'm sorry. That's all I've been playing.
Matt, what have you been playing?
All right, what have I been playing? So the newest trophies I got were from playing a little bit more Final Fantasy 16. The walking forward simulator that it is so far. It does require some combat, and I've been having fun with it, but I haven't had much time to actually play more of it. I've also been playing more Lethal Company, and Tricky, you're going to want to put some earmuffs on this one. But I'm playing through the game, and I've got some scrap I want to bring back to the ship, and I hear thudding down the hallway. And what do I see? A giant freaking spider coming at me.
Oh, boy.
And I don't know.
Is it just me, or is there an increase in spiders in video games? Like, I don't know if it has anything to do with Tricky openly admitting he's terrified by them, but man, spiders everywhere. Pretty soon, like, Tricky's not going to be able to play a video game.
What's funny is I think this is the game that has a arachnophobia mode where when you turn it on, it just puts the word spider in front of you. So anyway, I was able to kangaroo over that to get out alive. I was surprised I was able to do that. Then I also been getting back into Monster Hunter Rise with the newest announcement at the Game Awards. I've been itching to do some more hunting, so I've been playing that. And the final thing I want to talk about that I've been playing is a game called Lego Brick Tales. Now, this has been out on traditional platforms for a while now, but it is now out on the Meta Quest. And what it does, I called it the Meta Quest. I didn't call it the Oculus Quest. I promised myself I'd never do that. Anyway, what it does is it used mixed reality. So when you put the headset on, you could actually see your surroundings. And then it puts the game board in front of you, and you could use your controllers to manipulate your angle. And what you do is you walk your little guy through, and you can customize your Lego man just like any other Lego, different hair, tops, bottoms, whatever it is. And then as you come against a problem, let's say like a gap, it brings you into build mode, and you have to build a bridge, or you have to build a gyrocopter, or whatever thing you need to create to overcome this puzzle. And as you can imagine, it just gives you like a set number of bricks and then lets you go wild with that. And it's really cool being in VR, being able to manipulate the things, turn them around, change the angles, maybe look at it from a different way. But it's a really, really neat version of the game. And it just came out this last week, so I put some time into that, and it's a lot of fun. You know me and my Legos. I got a freaking a Star Destroyer coming at some point in the near future. But that's all I've been playing this week.
Yield?
So, I've been playing a plethora of games. I played a little of Lego 2K Drive, just because I had been earning a trophy like every day this week, and didn't know if I'd get one by the end of Friday. So I popped in, fired up Lego 2K, played it a little bit. I've been playing a little bit of World of Warship Legends. Played some Helldivers. Played the Sea of Stars demo. Played some Far Changing Tides. Some Power Wash Simulator. And some Deep Rock Galactic. Which, those last 3 were all platinums that I got yesterday as of recording.
Cashed in a lot of your reward tickets there for a big old prize, or I should say 3 big old prizes. No, I respect you and Nitro for getting the Platinum Trophy in Deep Rock Galactic because you really got to enjoy a game or really, really hate yourself and love 100% like I do to play a game that much for a Platinum Trophy.
830 hours, I think, is what I've logged in Deep Rock Galactic.
That's more than I played in Rocket League, and I just went over the 700 mark in Rocket League, and like I said before, I played since 2016, and I played almost every week, so that is an impressive amount of time, I will say. Not as disgusting as Tricky's playing The Division, and I'm not really ragging on you, Tricky, but the amount you play The Division is just, it's just a filthy amount. Dedicated, but just, whew. But yeah, congratulations on your 3 platinums, sir.
Thank you.
And then I guess, is that all you've been playing?
All I can think of at the moment.
All right, we can always do some DLC if you're thinking of anything. And as kind of customary, I, as the host, will share mine last. Really only been playing a couple games. I mean, you all know my live service game is Rocket League, so kind of pointless to mention that, at this juncture. But really, my big game for the end of the year, I'm not really looking to buy any games now that, Alan Wake is out, and I've already gotten the Platinum Trophy in that. But I started playing Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which is the one that's set in Victorian-era London. And, I asked Tricky, I was like, hey, Tricky, is this game good? It's been sitting on my hard drive for, a few weeks now. I just kind of, after Alan Wake, I just didn't have a lot of desire, a push to start anything, especially something that big. So it's kind of why I went to Metal Hellsinger first. But I jumped into Syndicate, and I told Tricky that I didn't necessarily agree with his opinion of the game. I don't know. Maybe I'm not saying it's a bad game, but it's basically so you guys know how Ubisoft really got on this roll with Assassin's Creed, just year after year after year. Well, this game is one of those games where it's like Ubisoft has a machine, and they're like, okay, what location and era are we doing next? And you just put it in the machine. It's just like, oh, we're doing the blueprint, and it just spits out another Assassin's Creed game. That's what this game feels like. It just feels like another Assassin's Creed game. It's probably my least favorite one because I know the first one had its problems, but there was a lot more excitement for me playing that game. Yes, it was repetitive, but the setting and the story and the fact that it was the first game and the ambition it had. And one of the things that I'll say the first game has done better than every single Assassin's Creed game since it was the assassinations, because there was presentation to them. They felt big. Ever since then, all the games that I've played, well, I mean, at least the last two that I played, Origins and Syndicate, the assassinations are just like nothing. They feel like absolutely nothing. They're just like a regular enemy. I mean, they may be, a highly important character, surrounded by other grunt enemies to protect them, but the assassinations in the Assassin's Creed games have stopped feeling important for a long, long time. I don't really know how they fix that, but that's one thing the first game has done better than all the rest, despite the fact that Ubisoft has continued to improve the formula. But I guess the biggest gripe I have since Assassin's Creed is it's like Ubisoft has an idea that's like, okay, we have to make a 50+ hour game experience, and we're just going to fill the world with a bunch of shit to do. Whether it's interesting or not doesn't really matter, because you can call the first game repetitive, but this game also, with the side missions, are extremely repetitive too. The bounties and the Templar hunt and the child liberation. A big part of Assassin's Creed Syndicate being in London is child labor, and you go to these warehouses and you have to free the children from their labor shackles. So it gets extremely repetitive. And the races, their street races. Look, I love driving carriages around the streets of London, but when you make me race those things, I don't play an Assassin's Creed game, a third-person action game, third-person stealth action, to do races. Okay, that's not the kind of thing I want in my game. So, if you have a few off ones, that's fine. But the fact that there's like in every section, like there's probably 10 plus races. Is like I don't want to do this. I just want to drive around in my carriage like it's GTA, not stopping anywhere, bumping into people. Who gives a shit? Flipping other carriages, but I don't want to race them. One of the other like mini game style things they have is a fight club. The fight club is fun, because I do like the combat's pretty simplified, but it is fun to like chain combos and beat the crap out of like 10 people in like a minute. Although I will say that stealth, like there are optional missions to each mission, there are optional objectives, which you need to do to get the platinum trophy, but for the most part, like if you're just trying to complete the main goals, like stealth isn't really necessary in this game because you could just go in and beat the living crap out of everybody. Like the combat's that easy. It's basically like mash a button to attack. If there's a big old yellow bar that appears above an enemy's head, press square to counter or press circle to counter, and then if an enemy has like their block up, you just press X to break that, and that's about it. So I honestly don't feel outside the optional objectives like stealth was necessary in this game. And overall, like London is just a very bland city compared to Egypt or a country like Greece or the Holy Land during the Crusades. It's just super bland. Like everywhere, like Industrial Revolution, just like a lot of it just looks the same. Even if they do have certain landmarks there, it just all feels very super boring. I don't know. This game, even though it's a good game, it's not a bad game. It just feels like the worst of Assassin's Creed, just being pimped out every year just for the sake of money. A few things I do like about the game because I've been bitching about it here for so long, but like I said, I do like the fight clubs. There's a zip line you can use to get to zip up buildings pretty quickly and travel across buildings, and you can also assassinate people off those zip lines, which is pretty cool. You have your home base is a train which rolls around the city, which also is really cool. And I do like the ability to be able to buy into businesses to create income, because obviously you're trying to upgrade your character throughout and, buy weapons and buy, buff your attributes. And you got to use money for that. And, buying into businesses is a way to have an income that you can take from your safe on the train. And it's just a nice way to passively earn money. I do like that. And what the final thing I'll say is it is really cool that they do have historical figures in the game. Like Florence Nightingale, they've got Karl Marx, Alexander Graham Bell. There's more than that, but they do have quite a few historical characters to pop up, which always give these games a more of an element of realism. Now, granted, like if you go to these locations, these countries, like Ubisoft does put a lot of effort to these games as far as mapping out the cities and making things seem as real as possible. Like I went to Italy and then came back and played the Ezio trilogy, or at least what was it, Assassin's Creed 2, and I was like blown away by how much effort they put into making things seem real. So the presence of historical figure just adds another layer to that. But I mean, overall, the worst thing I can say about this game is it just feels like another Assassin's Creed game was just put out just to make money, and it just kind of feels like, all right, where's the next chapter? Victoria, London? Great, let's just put out another one. I don't know. I feel like with Assassin's Creed Origins, they made necessary changes to the games that they needed to, but Syndicate falls in the line of it started to get really, really tired at this point, because this game at this point is 8 years old. It came out in 2015, so it was a while ago. But yeah, that's my weekly spiel on what game I've been playing. Tricky, you've played Assassin's Creed Syndicate. You like the game. Do you feel like anything I said there was fair criticisms, whatnot?
I just think you're looking at it in a jaded point of view.
But is it not hard to look at it other than that? But here's the thing: I hadn't.
Go ahead.
I don't think it's me being jaded, because ever since Revelations, I've only played 2 Assassin's Creed games, and that was Origins last year and Syndicate this year. So it's not like I'm burnt out on Assassin's Creed. It's just I feel like this game wasn't. It's like a roster update for Madden. It just wasn't any kind of leap forward.
Well, Assassin's Creed over the years has been criticized for not updating enough. But Assassin's Creed to me has always been the story being told, not necessarily the gameplay. So the fact that I got to play as 2 assassins, Jacob and Evie, I believe.
Yes, Jacob and Evie Frye, they are brother and sister. Which is a cool dynamic, because you can switch back and forth between the two, and as you're playing as one, you earn skill points that you can use for the other. So you don't have to switch back and forth between them, but you can if you want to.
Yeah, that was my favorite Assassin's Creed of all time. I get your point of view, but if you're gonna play Assassin's Creed, especially like the older ones, it does seem very repetitive. They didn't really flesh out everything, but this one, the city, the characters, I think was a step up from Ezio, which I know is blasphemous to some people because a lot of people love Ezio, but yeah, this was my favorite, and I respect your opinion. But I just happen to think you're wrong.
Well, man, it's all opinions. Neither of us are wrong. Our opinions don't agree. I will say one nice thing is it's a purely single-player Assassin's Creed. So if you don't want to deal with any of the multiplayer that they jammed into a lot of the other ones, it's one you can pick up and play and not have to worry about that. So, all right, well, I think I've filled up enough time and hot air on this podcast with what I've been playing. Before we get into our topics proper, we did do a show, or I said Daryl, Tricky, and Matt did a podcast that we released covering the Game Awards. So we won't be covering that on this show. So if you're looking for that, we released that for free on the channel. So you don't got to be a Patreon member. You can just go listen to it. But I did want to get...
Hold on. You don't have to be a paid member, but you do have to sign up to our Patreon. Well, you can sign up for free, but you don't have to pay for it.
All right.
I just want to clarify.
What's the point of having a free Patreon thing?
So you can follow everything we're doing on Patreon?
Oh, so when we put something particularly spicy out that people want to pay for or donate for to get to that level, they'll have an update.
Yeah, I mean, somebody wants to sign up, and then we release a free show like we did with the Game Awards. But then if we turn around and we release, the Mandalorian, then you could sign up for the Mandalorian. You can see, hey, they're posting the Mandalorian, and you can get it for this price point.
Fair enough. But yeah, so I wanted to get Matt's opinion. I mean, Tricky can talk about Spider-Man too. Really, the conversation I want to have is that I want Matt's opinion on the Game of the Year, because if you didn't hear, the Game of the Year went to Baldur's Gate 3. It beat out Super Mario Wonder, Resident Evil 4, Alan Wake 2, Spider-Man 2, and Tears of the Kingdom. And Matt, having played both Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate, I just kind of wanted to get... And
Spider-Man 2.
And he played Super Mario Wonder, so I think... Wait, did you play Super Mario Wonder, Matt?
Yeah, I've played most of the games of the year this year.
So, the other of us, I played Resident Evil, and I played Alan Wake, and then Tricky played Spider-Man 2, but really, Matt's the one who would have the most ability to talk about this among all of us. So, Matt, everyone kind of presumed once Zelda came out that was going to be the Game of the Year, and Baldur's Gate 3 came out of nowhere and got better review scores somehow, aggregate on Metacritic. And then people were like, oh, well, maybe Zelda won't win. In the end, I think it came down to these two games. Despite the fact that there was tough competition from all of the games. Do you feel like they got it right?
So I think I was in the same boat as you, where most people thought it was a shoo-in for Tears of the Kingdom this year. And as the show went on, we were getting less and less certain as Baldur's Gate was getting more and more awards. And first, I want to say, let's make no qualms about it. The Game Awards is an advertising event more than anything, and the awards are kind of a second guess. I think they just sometimes put everybody up on a dartboard and launch darts. That said, most people agree it was between Tears and Baldur's Gate. And I would actually disagree with you a little bit there, Alex. Baldur's Gate didn't exactly come out of nowhere. It's been in early development, early access for 3 years now. And it only did a full release back in August. So they've had all that time listening to the community, gaining feedback, reinventing how things are done in it. So they've been on a constant cycle of refinement. Tears of the Kingdom was doing the same thing, but in closed doors, doing Nintendo's process, refining it to where it needed to be. So all of that said, I'm not upset. I'm not disappointed Tears didn't win. I guess I'm more surprised than anything. But I am also happy for Larian and Baldur's Gate, because if there's a game besides Tears of the Kingdom that deserves Game of the Year, it's Baldur's Gate 3. The game is, from a Dungeon and Dragons fanatic, which I'm not. I listen to my friends play. I don't partake that much. It is a perfect jumping point to get in there. And from a game perspective, what they've done with this game is no short of magical. It's, to use Reddit's term, it's black magic fuckery, because I don't know how they consider all the different things that players can do in this game. The story, the art direction, the animation, the voice acting, it all puts Bethesda to shame. And I've said this every time, and I'll continue to say it. From a studio like Larian compared to what Bethesda does, Larian just blew them out of the water. And as a result, Baldur's Gate 1, and I really, truly do think it deserves that praise.
Fair enough. Matt, when I said came out of nowhere, I guess what I meant was no one expected it to get as good a reviews as it got. Because to get those type of reviews, that rarefied air, it's usually like a Zelda game. Let's be real. Like, we're talking up near Ocarina of Time, which I think is still the best reviewed game ever at 99. But, like, this was like one step below that.
Yeah, listen, Daryl said it on the show. This was not a year where gamers went wanting. We had so many good games this year. And, for me, having played most of them, I kind of want to play Alan Wake 2, because that's, I played Alan Wake 1, I played Control. Alan Wake 1 kind of bored me more than anything, but from what everybody's saying about Alan Wake 2, it seems to be an excellent addition to the genre. And it just couldn't hold water to what Tears and Baldur's came out swinging this year.
Yeah, all right. I just want to get your opinion on that. Like I said, if you want full coverage of the Game Awards, you can. If you sign up for our Patreon, you can sign up for free. Then you can have access to that, wherever you find our podcast. Let's jump into the topics this week. What do you say, folks? And Matt, as you said, gamers did not go wanting this year, and we even got The Day Before out. The game that everyone called a scam managed to make it out the door. This article comes from Eurogamer by Ed Nightingale. The Day Before's overwhelmingly negative Steam reviews seem deserved. Thank you again, Matt. Matt does the paraphrasing of all these articles, so thank you for doing that, sir, as well as making the agenda. The zombie MMO, The Day Before, is now out in early access. Previously, the dev faced accusations of this game being a scam using unpaid volunteers and had a trademark dispute with a Korean calendar app. If you remember, this game was originally slated to be released in June 2022, but was delayed days before its release, evidently for a switch from Unreal 4 to Unreal 5. Now it's out. Steam users, over 12,000 of them, have reviewed the game as mostly negative in Steam's rating system. There are claims that it's a crash grab, asset flips, and otherwise low-effort game. There's a limited character creation and 3 classes. Some reviewers say the world feels empty despite the servers being at high capacity. And then I guess we'll just roll this next story in because it also has to do with The Day Before. This comes from PC Games In, written by Ed Smith. The headline reads, The Day Before December seems to be... the Day Before dev seems to be deleting evidence there was ever an MMO. Following the launch of the game, which has been mired by technical problems, the game's Steam page was seemingly updated to remove mention of certain genres. Reviewers have noted the game seems more like an extraction shooter than an MMO. The Steam backend shows multiple changes to the tags used for the game. Removed tags include open world survival and massively multiplayer. Furthermore, the dev's Discord for the game is locked down, and a number of videos have been removed from the game's official YouTube page. So, there wasn't much hope for this game since it's been mired in controversy for well over a year now, and it seems like the release of the game hasn't done anything to help it either. Matt, I was reading the article. I believe it was, if it's the same article that you used for this from Eurogamer, where it says the servers were, I can't remember exactly what the language they used were, but basically the servers weren't always acting as they should. Like, there were issues with the servers and people being able to play the game. Let me see if I can find that. But, Matt, sir, what are your thoughts on all of this? Having gone through most of the... Sorry, I'm trying to open a link here. Having gone through most of the articles when it comes to this game.
So, as I was putting this article together, I remember when we initially covered the story last year or earlier this year, I forget, and it was supposed to release, and they canceled the release like days before, and there was, okay, pun not intended. And everybody was calling it a scam. And we turned around and said, well, it's not a scam. They're not taking your money as a customer. They said something happened. And there was talk about some DMCA claim, or the name was in contention. But now that it's out and people are putting down their cold hard cash, it's a $40 early access. It's interesting to see what people are saying about it. But the thing that should be noted, and it says it in the article, Steam users can submit to have tags added or removed to the game, but their action alone doesn't do it. The developer has to get the feedback and go, okay, I see what they're saying, and they'll change it around. This seems to be a case of a developer making a product. And for everybody who's not aware, asset flip is basically you go in, you buy an engine, and then you develop a game around it, but you don't do anything with that. You literally take pieces of art and assets in that engine. Like you buy Unreal Engine, it comes with things like trees or player models, and you don't do much, or you don't do anything at all, and you just put it in a game and put it out there to sell. I don't necessarily think that that's what these people have done, but I'm looking at the reviews on Steam, and you got people saying like nothing like the trailer, the sound is not the best, so many bugs in this game, and bugs are expected in early access. But if this game was originally sold as an MMO and people are buying it and putting it their time in, and it's not an MMO, and it's more of an extraction shooter, that it's different. Thank God on digital games like Steam, digital platforms like Steam, you can refund if it's within 2 hours of play time or 2 weeks of release. So spend your money wisely, but it's I think this is more than a case of review bombing. Review bombing quickly gets handled. This is something else entirely.
Isn't this one of the worst reviewed games on Steam of all time?
That and Overwatch 2.
That and if you actually read the positive reviews on Steam, they're actually negative. Like people are giving it 5 stars, but they're like roasting the shit out of it.
Well, take this one. It says, expect the unexpected. Enjoy what this game has to offer, not what you think it offers. Early access means more to come everyone. The way it is now is fine enough to be like, wow, it can be something good. So many players are listing bug reports and patches happening. This guy he's not making sense. He's like, oh, I'm listing it good because it's early access, things to come. No, review it as it is, not what it promises to be.
Yeah, and just a few quotes from the Eurogamer story. Quote, I then needed to choose a server with every option listed as being high capacity. That's odd considering the world feels empty and lifeless once you fully arrive. So, I mean, let's be real, they probably didn't have a lot of money into their server tech either. And this game was likely just rushed to get it out. Another quote, let's see, once outside, the already bad performance took a nosedive to practically unplayable. The frame rate is appalling and pop-in is extensive, even with the city feeling soulless. I eventually met my first zombie who shuffled towards me and flinched from each one of my shots seconds after impact. Staying on top of a car, I was literally invincible, and the zombie was just looking up at me from down below. Later, I met an actual human I somehow managed to defeat, despite the frame rate making aiming far more trying than it should have been, but soon died from myself from bleeding. So, I mean, this game has just been a mess. Technical bugs, them promising a certain style of game that they now seem to be trying to scrub. There's also issues with potentially copying the work of other developers. So, all not good. This, as Matt said, and the article even alludes to this, there are probably going to be a lot of refunds for this game. And people may be, curious to check it out, but I would be shocked if most of the people who played this game did not ask for a refund, given how bad it is. I don't think that, like Matt said, I don't think this is an issue of review bombing. I think this game should just have never come out. And the developer probably forced it out because they had gotten so much, blowback about this game being a scam. And yeah.
So the one thing is, in the show notes, and you'll see, I added a screenshot showing the changes in the background, showing the removal of open world survival craft. adding single player, removing massively multiplayer, adding realistic. It's not a good look.
Yeah, because MMO is about the exact opposite, the other end of the spectrum as single player. So I don't know how they thought they would get away with that, but clearly before they put this game out, something needed to be said, and just, hey, before you cannot expect people, because I mean, is this game on PlayStation or Xbox?
No, it's only on early access on the PC. It's not coming to consoles for another year.
Well, they may want to consider not releasing on consoles, because how this game is getting absolutely just dragged through the mud, I can't see anybody buying it.
Okay. I don't want to be that guy.
You're always that guy.
You're going to be that guy.
Listen, we reported on this game, and I told you I was hyped for this game. I want to see it succeed. I hope it is a real game. All these reviews are not giving me much hope, but it is in early access. And there have been games in the past, a la Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky, that have come out completely destroyed and have fixed themselves.
But they weren't in early access.
Well, depends on how you want to look at it.
You're putting that caveat on there that this is early access. Now, did they launch in early access or did they launch as a full game?
Which ones?
The game in question, the day before.
It launched in early access. They outright said this is going to be in early access, and it's going to be in early access. I think they said 6 to 8 months, but up to a year. Okay,
so you're comparing apples and oranges. Because Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky launched as full games.
They did.
And they were over. No Man's Sky was overpromised.
And so was this.
That they eventually made because this is early access.
Well, you're kind of making my point, is the fact that...
No, I'm not making your point.
Okay,
because you're comparing a game that launched as a full game that was overhyped, compared to a game that the only way you can play it is to buy in for early access. They're not there yet. So what the real controversy to this game, at least from what I'm paying attention to, because I have not a skin in or a horse in this game, is that they sold it as an MMO and other stuff, and that's not what they're getting, and they seem to be going back and covering their tracks of like, oh no, we never sold it as this. Whereas Cyberpunk didn't run well on the old generation like they promised, and then they kind of just, our bad. And, all the video was from the new generation, and they didn't show that. No Man's Sky was promised the world. It didn't launch as that, and then they've added to it over time to get it to where it is. I cannot see a comparison between the two.
And I think that No Man's Sky didn't launch with everything that was promised, and Hello Games caught a lot of flack for that. But this game is seemingly broken, and in just so many aspects of the game. And again, you sold one type of game, and it is not that type of game. That's what has happened upon release. No Man's Sky promised things it didn't deliver, but you still got the game style that you saw in the trailers. It wasn't like, hey, this is massively multiplayer. Oh, no. It's more single player. Or it's more like you may see another person like every 6 hours or one a day. But I think that the big difference here is, as Yield said, is it was sold as one thing, and now the developer is just trying to cover everything up like it never was as announced.
Okay, all right, let me be clear. I'm not defending them changing if I'm MMO or open world survival. I'm not defending that. What I'm saying is the concerns where they're saying that the world is not populated, it seems like it's empty, blah, blah, blah. That's what I'm saying is like, as time comes out, because, and again, I'm not defending them because Matt brought it up. There was a point this game was going to release, and then all of a sudden, days before they released it, they're like, nope, we're going to delay it because we're going from Unreal 4 to Unreal 5, which was really freaking weird. Like, you that far in we're not going to release on this engine. We're going to switch engines. So, I'm not defending them, but I'm saying if they really made that switch and they still wanted to hit a launch date, it is understandable that the world is not as populated as it should be. So I'm interested to see where this game is in a year.
It's going to be dead, Tricky. It's going to be absolutely dead. It'll be dead in a month.
Well, that is the prevailing belief, and I'm not sure that I disagree with that. But if this does make it a year, it'd be interesting to see what people are saying about this in a year, is what I'm saying. If it makes it the year.
Tricky, do you think that they should release it on the consoles after how it's launched on PC?
If it's in the same state it's in right now, absolutely not. If they improve it as they did with No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk, and they fix it to a point where it is a semi-decent game, yes, they should release it on the consoles. But if it, in its current state, absolutely not.
I mean, I don't know how big their team is, but it seems like all the focus has to be on the PC. And how is this team going to release? How's the team going to make the PC release worthwhile after I imagine everyone's going to jump ship and just abandon it, and then supposed to in a year get out the console versions?
Let me defer to Matt's expertise on this. Matt, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, and I'm not trying to do that, but you are predominantly a PC player. How many games have released in early access and it was roasted, but eventually turned out to be semi-decent by the full release?
So I can't give you numbers like that. I can tell you that most games that come out in early access don't end up meeting their goals and end up becoming abandonware because they don't meet their ends. But I will tell you, there's plenty of games that I've bought into early access, and I've been proud of the time I've put into them without worrying about what's coming down the line. Ember Knights and Gunfire Reborn are two that leap right out in front of me that said, we're early access. There's going to be bugs. Listen, early access is all about squashing the bugs and getting player feedback, and that's fine.
Is it? I'm sorry to cut you off. Is early access another way of saying a glorified beta?
No. Betas are the new demo. Demos used to be put out so that way players can try the game and see if it's for them. Betas are now out as a way to show players what the game is, give them a small slice of what's available, and hopefully find bugs, because nowadays every game has bugs. So it's hard not to see what a demo is. Early access is a way for developers to complete the games that they're developing by crowdfunding it, a la Kickstarter or Steam Early Access, to get funds to continue development. And while they're doing that, players understand that they're going to come up against things like bugs and crashes, and that a developer should be forgiven for, because early access is just that. It's the game's still in development. It hasn't been released worldwide. Long ago, a game going gold or going version 1.0 was a way to assure the fans that the game is in its most playable state, ready for full release. Now, what you have are games being developed and crowdfunded to the point where we know that there's going to be bugs. Games these days are going to have bugs regardless. But 1.0 is a milestone that developers assure players that this is going to be the most complete package. We may add stuff later down the line, but these are all the features we wanted to include in the game. What the case of the day before is it seems like things were promised a la No Man's Sky, and they're not there. And it's okay. If the developer said, we want this to be an MMO, it's not at that point right now. But what's happening is they're releasing the game and now they're deleting everything related to being an MMO. And that is scummy to me. That's the issue I take with this entire problem, is that between what they were telling you what it is to now gaslighting the player saying, well, that was never the intended release, that this is what the game is. That is an issue I take. I can forgive bugs. I can forgive features not being there if the developer says, yeah, we don't have that yet. That's coming down the line. But to say, oh, this is what the game is, and then when you release it, go, we never said that. That's the issue that we take.
Yeah, all in all, not a great situation. And even, I mean, this brings up the point, though. If the game is early access and it deserves, some leeway with the state of the game, should people even be reviewing it? I guess they're not. There's no critical reviews. It's all user reviews, Matt.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
there's no actual critic reviews, and you can always go in on Steam and change a review later, though the majority do not. And that's a risk developers take, putting something out in early access in an unfinished state. The game may just be permanently stuck and overwhelmingly negative. Hopefully enough people buy it that balance out, but what people may not know in Steam is there's actually two categories: lifetime and recent. Lifetime shows the lifetime statistic of where it finds itself: overwhelmingly positive, very positive, positive, negative, very negative, and overwhelmingly negative. But then recent takes in only, I don't know what the timeline is, or if it's a timeline, or if it's a certain number of votes. But if, let's say, a developer turned something around and you see that recent turn into very positive or overwhelmingly positive, you know that something took place that everybody likes, and it has improved in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask, and I started to, if there should be reviews for this game, because it's early access, but I think that it's fair, and I think, really, honestly, I think critics ought to be able to review it, the commercial sites like IGN and whatnot, because you're asking people to exchange money, right? You have to buy into this.
Yep.
And I think if there's money exchanged, you should be able to review something. So I'm actually surprised there's not reviews from the websites.
Yeah, well, I think websites in general have more of a rule about reviewing something when it's finished, not when it's taking money. I will say this, though, and we missed it earlier in the Game Awards discussion. Everybody's so hyped about GTA 6 being 2025. I would like to skip 2024 and go right to 2025 to get my new Monster Hunter game. Thank you.
Well, you know what, Matt? I can't say that I'm going to be invested in Monster Hunter, but there's a better shot of me playing Monster Hunter than GTA, because I know there's heavy inspiration and GTA Vice City vibes in GTA 6, but maybe just one of those games that's just going to be way too big for me. I mean, honestly, I haven't even watched the trailer because I just don't give a shit. I don't care.
It has a great song.
Is it gonna? What song is that? Is it from the 80s?
Yes. Well, no. Late 80s, early 90s.
What's the song?
Love is a Long Road from Tom Petty.
Ah, all right. Well, let's step away from. We can always come back to it in a later episode, and I'm sure there will be more news about the day before as it continues to be a catastrophic disaster for the developer. But let's move on to Microsoft, who actually, I think, deserves a bit of praise here. You won't see us praising Microsoft a lot here on Trophy Horse, but I think this is an occasion when we can. This article comes from Bloomberg, written by Josh Edelson, and the headline reads, Microsoft to convert gaming staff from temps to unionized employees. In a move that seems to buck industry trend, Microsoft is converting a group of subcontracted temps into unionized employees. This amounts to 77 contract staff who could see a 22% pay increase. Obviously, you're seeing more and more calls for unionization in the games industry because of particularly what's happened this year with how many people have been let go. And you also, with unions, have somebody to fight for, your pay. We saw it with the Screen Actors Guild, where the writers went on strike, and fighting for better wages, better pay from the studios. And that's kind of one of the things that we're starting to see more and more in the video games industry, is that unionization could become more important as people have to fight more and more, in a what is seen now as a very rewarding but also at times a very risky industry. Tricky, you are unionized. What do you think of this news and the fact that it's Microsoft doing it?
I'm not a big fan of unions, honestly.
Well, in some cases it might be necessary, but I don't know. I mean, Tricky, I hate to put you on the spot, but you have definitely benefited from being part of a union.
I have. I mean, our union just got us a better contract on the job that goes into effect at the end of this month. Got us pay raises, got us different changes in the rules and whatnot. Unions can be beneficial, but I can also see the downsides of unions, and I'm not going to go into detail because I'm not going to be that guy. But
you don't want to catch shit at work.
Well, no, there's plenty of people that like the union who don't like the union. Unions, all unions have their good and their bad. It's just a fact. But it begs the question is, if they're willing to unionize these people now, why is not everybody else already unionized?
I mean, maybe somebody has to take the first step. And if Microsoft is going to do, change over, these 77 people from contract staff to union, are they going to do it to everybody?
Yeah.
Matt, sir, your thoughts on this?
The biggest reason I wanted to include this was because everything in the gaming world has been bleak recently, with layoffs and cutbacks and things like that. I want to introduce like a little bit of positivity. And in an industry that seems like it may need to benefit from unionization, I am firmly on unions can create more problems on getting things done. But there's a lot of benefits us non-union people have benefited from unions in the past. 5-day work week, 40 hours, holidays, things like that. It may be a necessary step at this point in the industry to protect some people that otherwise need protecting. How many times have we said, as opposed to cutting back the jobs, the people actually doing the work, there's some higher end executives that maybe need to be out in the street instead. And again, this is only 77 people compared to how many other people Microsoft has laid off in the past year. But CD Projekt Red was out there and finally unionized a number of their folks even after they had some layoffs. And the companies are recognizing it. How about all the horror stories from other companies like Starbucks or Chipotle, where their people are trying to unionize, or even Amazon, where their people are trying to unionize and it's actively being fought by management because they're afraid of some power back at the worker level. So I think it's a cautious step in the right direction. But again, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And there's been plenty of times I've seen unionized heads be as abusive, if not more, than management staff. So just something to be aware of.
And Yield, sir, is this where the video game industry needs to go, or is it just kind of one of those things where maybe it works for Microsoft, but it doesn't necessarily work for somebody else?
Only time will tell in that, in my opinion. I'm just glad to see or to hear that there are 77 temps that are now going to be full-time people, and they don't necessarily have to worry about their job in the coming months.
And as we've talked about extensively in the last 3 or 4 months on this show, a lot of people in the video games industry are probably worried about their jobs, and unfortunately a lot of people have lost their jobs. We had Jeff Hanna on last week for 600, and Tricky asked him, I think you asked him on the show, Tricky, about the folks at Volition, which Volition was closed by Embracer this year. So been a lot of turmoil in the video game industry, and I think that what is needed now is steps to safeguard people's jobs. Whether that's a review of budgets, whether that's a changing of how people do things and conduct business, or maybe unionization. Something needs to be done so that people's jobs are not so much at risk, or people aren't really sure whether they'll have their job the next year or whether they'll have to search for a new job. So just a bit of stabilization in the industry would be good, and maybe this is a step towards that. And a lot of the news, not just in video games, but a lot of the news in general, you read the newspaper, you see on the TV, it's a lot of negativity. and we appreciate the little gift you gave us, Matt, because that's about all the positivity we're about to see here, because we're jumping to Bungie. And there's not a lot going good for Bungie right at this point. And honestly, at this point, after reading this, I'm not sure why Sony bought Bungie. I was all for this last year, but now more and more I read into the situation of Bungie, I'm like, Sony, maybe you shouldn't have. But we'll get into it. The article is from IGN.com, Rebecca Valentine writing. The headline is, Bungie devs say atmosphere is soul-crushing amid layoffs and fear of total Sony takeover. Of the remaining 1,200 devs at Bungie after the recent round of layoffs, there's fear regarding the cost-cutting measures and more cuts to come. The studio remains independent under Sony. Some devs who wish to remain anonymous hinted the independence may not last forever. Currently, the board overseeing Bungie is split between Sony and Bungie execs, but this was contingent on Bungie meeting certain financial goals. That led to speculation that may have been the reason Bungie took the action to cut around 100 staff earlier this year, and why it was insistent that this was Bungie's call and not Sony's. All of this has led to massive decay in morale in the described soul-crushing environment over the past few months. The feeling is that if Destiny 2's expansion, The Final Shape, doesn't do well, there may be more layoffs coming. So, a second round of layoffs at Bungie would not be great, obviously. It would be par for the course for 2023, although not a good start for 2024 if it were to happen there. But, I mean, if it is true that Bungie has been truly independent underneath Sony, although there seems to be a board of people that includes Sony execs or members of Sony that also does oversee Bungie, mixed in there with some Bungie folks, but hasn't it been seemingly Bungie that got Bungie to this point where it's a soul-crushing... I mean, it doesn't seem like they want to be, have Sony hanging over their heads and making their decisions, but are they really in a great spot with Bungie's, the Bungie heads making all the calls, calling all the shots? I mean, they're worried if they don't do well with this next expansion, hell, there could be more people fired. So, Matt, I don't know. Is it better off that Bungie runs Bungie, or is it an issue of what Bungie has done to itself and maybe Sony needs to step in?
I think it's time for Bungie to finally get a taste of what it's like to be run by somebody else, because back when they were under Microsoft, they were like, oh, we need to get out from Microsoft. They're controlling us too much. And they went out, did their own thing, and then they went under Activision Blizzard. And then they pretty much, everybody was afraid, oh, they're going to get the Activision treatment. No, all the microtransactions and everything they did with Destiny 2 was Bungie's decision. And we saw how that worked for them. And then they went out and now they're under Sony. And now all the things that are happening, no, it wasn't Sony's decision. It was Bungie's decision. And again, as it alluded to in the article, it's they cut people because they have to meet financial obligations. And as a result, people got hurt because of it, because Bungie can't seem to get out of their own way. Destiny 2 may need to go the way of the dinosaurs at this point, because if the Final Shape doesn't shape up, it's going to be a problem for them, and Sony's going to have to step in and protect their billion-dollar investment.
Was it their $4 billion investment?
I thought it was like 3.6.
Okay, somewhere around there. In the United States, we round up. We round up to 4.
We do a lot of things in the United States that maybe we shouldn't.
Here's the thing. They're advertising Marathon, obviously. We saw that at State of Play early this year. Are they going to try to run Destiny 2 and Marathon concurrently? I always thought that once they went to Marathon, they would step away from Destiny and maybe eventually come back to it and do Destiny 3. But you're going to try to run both?
It's going to be baffling to see what they do, because I don't know if Marathon is supposed to be a ongoing live service game. It seems like it's probably just going to be a one and done. So maybe they can focus on that while maintaining Destiny 2. But I think Destiny 2 may have run its course by this point.
It has been a while since it came out. Yield, sir, as I said, I was all hyped for not hyped because I never play any Bungie games, but I thought it was a good idea for Sony to bring in a company that had experience with live service, and in particular with an online shooter. Now, with Matt has talked about on previous shows, some of the issues they've had in the past with other, I don't want to say overlords, but other companies they've been a part of or underneath. It seems like some of the sunshine on Bungie is starting to erode. What do you take from all the problems at the studio? Is it something that's just kind of a long-standing issues that need to be figured out, or are these just kind of like popping up within the last year?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Maybe a little both. I feel they need to do something else. It almost feels like they're trying to almost divert some of the blame from themselves, since they're independent, off onto Sony, in a sense of, oh, we're not really the bad guys. It's Sony is kind of, maybe I'm hearing it wrong, but that's just what it feels like.
I think you might have it backwards a little bit, because they are the one. Bungie is saying these are our decisions, but these devs are afraid Sony's going to come in and start running things, as opposed to letting Bungie do their own thing because of Bungie's bad decisions.
Well, I mean, like you said, you can't blame them if Sony does come in and say, okay, this is what we're going to start making, or, we're going to cut this out, and yada, yada, because, I mean, they $3.6 billion. Eventually, you want to see that start to turn a profit. So I don't know. I was hoping when they bought Bungie that Bungie would be able to strike, have lightning in a bottle and do what they did with Halo, but it's not looking like it.
Yeah, and they did Halo when, Microsoft was just getting to the games industry, and they had Halo, and I don't know how long Bungie had been making games before Halo. We talked about Marathon as just kind of a refresh of what they did in the 90s. So they were around. But, to make a game like that under a brand new publisher or a brand new platform holder is pretty impressive. It just seems like Bungie, I don't know. Like I said before, would Bungie be better underneath of Sony? Because it seemed like Bungie leadership now needs a bit of direction. And maybe Sony will let them correct whatever's going on there and eventually step in. But yeah, I don't know how much worse off they could be underneath Sony. Tricky, your thoughts on what's going on with Bungie and how we're starting to see some cracks that maybe people didn't see before. And you would hope Sony, who spent as much money as they did on them, didn't see these or weren't aware of these when they actually put down that cash to bring them in-house. Even if they are independent.
Well, I'm kind of catching up with the conversation because I had to step away for a second. But I don't know. I'm starting to get the feel like Bungie wants to be independent, but they also want a sugar daddy. And they're looking at Sony as a sugar daddy to pay all their bills. That Bungie really can't stand on their own, but that's what they want. And the fact that when Sony did purchase them, we got the story that Bungie was still going to be multi-platform and all this other stuff. And it's really weird that we don't see Bungie under the PlayStation Studios heading anywhere. Sony owns them, but they're not a PlayStation studio. That doesn't make sense to me. It's really weird the way the story is going. But to me, it just sounds like I said, Bungie wants to be independent, but they want somebody paying their bills. Yeah, maybe they should have thought about this before they took all that money from Sony, although I'm sure that money sounded nice and, we can still be independent? Sure, why not? But I guess maybe the atmosphere at the studio, the soul-crushiness of it is maybe they wouldn't feel quite so afraid if they were independent, but at the same time, the studio had sold to Sony and took Sony's money, so clearly there was a need there for them to do that. I don't think, either that or they're stupid and they just wanted the money, but I think there is a recognition to Bungie that if they can retain as much autonomy, that's great, but maybe they need to be part of a larger group. I don't know. I just want to see why else you would sell other than you need that extra layer of leadership above you, or you need, like Tricky said, that sugar daddy. You need a bit of financial protection rather than just being on your own, flapping out there in the breeze. So
I don't know. It just seems like gloom and doom at Destiny, or not Destiny, but a Destiny maker Bungie these days. Hopefully they can turn it around. But yeah, I mean, if I'm Sony and I paid that much for you and you're not meeting financial goals that everyone agreed on, I'm going to come to you eventually and say, look, here's what's going to happen. Either you're going to buy yourself back from us or we're going to take over, because what you're doing is not good. Bungie has been in business for a long time, so you would think that they can turn it around. But also they have had, we'll call them mini suitors in past years. So maybe jumping from ship to ship is just what they do.
I think it's also worth noting, which, is just a gut feeling at this point. It's maybe Sony also bought them for their expertise in games as a service.
That's very clearly what they did, yeah.
We've heard the stories about how
working out for them.
Yeah, and that's not working out very well for them, is it?
We had the story recently that they asked Bungie to weigh in on certain projects. So, I mean, that could have been part of the initial purchase reason too, as well.
Yeah, I mean, also Bungie has been a very successful, or Destiny has been a very successful series when it comes to money and bringing in money, as far as being in that shooter space. So, yeah, I'm sure there were multiple reasons they brought him in, but clearly, we know that Jim Ryan brought in the whole idea that we're going to move very heavily into live service. We've talked about on the show how there are 12 games in development, 12 live service games. Of those 12, half have been delayed. So clearly they saw Bungie as not only a very important shooter that can make money across multiple platforms, but also a way into live service, and you get a live service game right away with a proven developer. So, I mean, again, with all that we've seen for the games industry this year and all the layoffs, you would hope that Bungie can turn it around and Destiny 2's next expansion, The Final Shape, does well, and we don't have to see any more layoffs, because that doesn't benefit anybody. So, yeah. One other bit from Bungie that came out of all this news, and it was a separate article, but over on Tech Radar, written by Ellie Gold, Destiny 2 players will no longer be able to access the $15 starter pack due to one pay-to-win item. The new pack contained an exotic item, which is an item of the highest rarity in Destiny's looter shooter. There's not necessarily the strongest item, but some have the potential to be meta-defining. However, there's some issues that new players buying a pack that contained an exotic item is just bait for new players to spend more money. After hearing fan concerns, Bungie pulled the pack from further purchase. So, always good when developers listen to the fan base as opposed to just trying to make money. Matt, you added this to the topics this week. What do you think is most particularly important about this?
It's definitely that if Sony was going to Bungie to get expertise on game as a live service, this is the latest example to show. Well, maybe they don't know what the pulse is. I think the idea of a starter pack makes sense. I think including the items that they did in it that shows the problem Bungie has had all along. Take their Eververse, which is their live money shop that came with Destiny 2. It's just been a cash grab the entire time. It's just trying to get as much money out of people as possible by selling things that they think are cool. The neat thing about Destiny and the exotic items, you are only allowed to equip 2 exotic items, 1 armor piece and 1 weapon, and that's it. You can't put every slot filled with exotic items like it was an MMO, and they do that for proper power balancing. So to include a starter pack that has an exotic item in it just to appeal to new players and be like, hey, look at this, when in most cases items you get are immediately replaced. Because I go out there, I find an epic, a purple item, and then I get a drop 2 levels later of a green item that's more powerful than the epic item. That's a problem. And that's been the balancing issue Destiny has had for a long while. So a $15 starter pack, it's not a pay to win scenario. They're trying to entice people to spend money when maybe they should be focusing on not taking away assets other people actually bought. Because you remember, that's something that Bungie did. They actually did that with Destiny, where you had bought parts of the game and then they vaulted it 2 years later saying, oh, we don't have the space for this on our servers. So I just don't trust them with my money.
Tricky, sir.
The only thing I can equate this to is the Division. But I don't know if Destiny has this, but like right now with the Division 2, it's been out for 5 years now. There is a system within the Division in which you can get any item. Once you have the roles that you want on it, you can go over to the optimization table and max it out to be a god roll. I don't know if that's something that happens in Destiny, but items are only what you use of them. You know, if somebody was to meet me in the Dark Zone right now, a starter player, I'd absolutely mop the floor with them. If this somehow evens it out, then I'm okay with it, but still you need the stats to do it. So I don't like pay to win items. I don't know that it should contain an exotic, but I don't know.
Well, how do you read that? Because like Matt said, putting an exotic item in and I don't know how much it costs, but actually it said $15. My bad. It said $15 for a starter pack. Honestly, I will go back and say if it's $15, shouldn't it include something like that? You're paying $15. Some games cost that much. Some DLCs that, last 10 hours cost that much. But shouldn't you get something of substance as opposed to, like Matt said, you buy it, a starter pack, and then soon like everything's replaced by something better? If you would pay $15 for a starter pack, wouldn't you expect something substantial in that?
I want to say yes and I want to say no. Yes, you feel like you should get something for buying a starter pack, but at the same time, it shouldn't be game breaking. It's supposed to be a starter pack, it's just supposed to help you get up to speed quicker, so to speak, or so you're not getting ran over so quickly. It's not supposed to make it so this is my opinion, you're not on par with everybody who's been there day one, but you're not in yourself in such a deep hole starting out. So, maybe they shouldn't have put it as such an epic item. Maybe it should have been a little less. Maybe it shouldn't have been, as expensive. I don't know. Like I said, I really can make an argument for both ways, and I really don't know. I think I probably more towards maybe it's labeled wrong, because I think a starter pack is more to get you up to speed, not to give you an unfair advantage.
All right, and again, I'm comparing two different games, but there are exotics in the Division that are nowhere, shape, or form like that overpowered. My gear, because I guess I think I heard Matt say this, like the same in the Division. Like I can only equip one exotic weapon and one exotic gear piece. I can't just load out on exotics. So there are exotic items in the Division that aren't like that powerful. Like they provide certain buffs or certain things like protection against elites or grenade damage or whatever it may be. I don't know that an exotic should have been in this starter pack, because you can give them, I don't know what they're called in Destiny, but you can give them like a legendary item, and that works just as well. I think a starter pack, if you try to get people up to speed, so to speak, it should be enough to get them to be able to compete with the highest level players.
So I'll throw this to Matt. My question, I guess, is not necessarily... I don't think that anything should be pay to win, because with games like this, you always, and weapons and giving access to better weapons and stuff like that, usually a lot of things that you pay for in live service games are cosmetic, and that's how people stay out of the hot water of providing pay to win. When it comes to weapons, well, then you're in kind of a new territory there. Matt, I guess my argument should be if you're, because Bungie is a game, sorry, I keep doing that. Destiny is a game you have to pay for. It's not free to play. So if you're going to charge people $15 on top of that for a starter pack, I think that either you need to get something substantial or you need to lower the price and take the exotic item out of there. Because I don't think that something that's $15 should just carry basic items in it. Do you think that's a fair thing to say?
So Destiny 2 actually is free to play.
Oh, it is.
I think at the base level, but all the expansions are what you're paying for.
Okay, sorry, that's my bad. I was wrong. I just had assumed it was paid.
Here's the catch about exotic items in Destiny. You have to unlock their potential. And as a new player, you're nowhere near doing the activities you need to unlock those. Take what Monster Hunter did during their expansions. They provided access to weapons to help you get through the base game quicker as opposed to grinding out everything if you want to get to the expansion. But it was an optional thing and they included it free as part of the expansion. Take Destiny, which is giving you items. Now, you need items. But Destiny is also a game that items are dropping all the time and your current equipment is getting outclassed every second you're playing.
Same in the Division.
So, yeah, you're spending money for something that's going to be replaced 2 seconds later. Like, I don't see the purpose of it.
It's also like when you go to pre-order a game and they're like, oh, get this weapon or get these skins. You know, an hour into the game, they're all useless. That's the way I look at this. Like, you're paying $15 to get up to speed, but the real work is after you start playing the game.
All right.
Good point.
All right, and Matt, thank you for correcting me there because, like I said, I just assumed it was pay to win, or you bought the game and then they had the add-ons. But it's good to know that you corrected me that it's actually free to play and then you pay for everything else after that. So, do we have any questions this week, Tricky?
I did post late. I'm bringing up Facebook page now. I don't have any notifications, so I don't think we do. Just stalling as Facebook is running really, really slow right now. Let me try to do it on my phone. Maybe that'll be quicker.
I didn't see anything. I just checked the page myself.
And then in the chat, we don't have any questions.
No.
Okay.
Other than I'll just state that Matt brought the evil spawn into camera view.
Man, you need to be
And he
nicer
was
to
cuddly
kitties.
and warm.
You need to be nicer to cats. Because I got 2 cats in this
Listen.
house, and I ain't gonna let you be mean to them.
Listen, I rescued a cat off the side of the BQE. I like cats as well, but they are very temperamental and they're evil spawns. So 1 second they could be licking you, and then you go to
Maybe
pet
they
it.
just
and
don't like you, Tricky.
It just wants to bite your finger.
Tricky doesn't make just because they don't always want to be petted doesn't make them devil spawn. Just means they like to be
These
left
are the
alone
sa-
sometimes.
These are the same animals that will sit on your counter and for no reason whatsoever push things off the counter onto the floor.
Our cats do not do that. I mean, one of our cats will get up on the counter and play with things, but he doesn't just knock over like important shit. It's like small like bottle caps and whatnot.
It's still they're knocking things off of shelves. Wait until it's your grandmother's urn.
Don't put your grandmother's urn in a place that it can.
Wait, hold on. Is your grandmother's urn in the kitchen where you cook food?
What does the kitchen have to do with anything?
You said on top of your counters. I just assumed it was kitchen counters.
I'm saying counters, but I mean any kind of shelf. Like right now, I got Bella's ashes on a bookshelf, but if I had a cat, who knows? They might try to climb that bookshelf and then knock over Bella's urn, and then I'd have to rehome a cat.
Anyways,
Instead of paying for 70 different PlayStation 5s, maybe invest in some kind of display case.
An enclosed bookshelf.
Yeah, something like that. Something with doors. All right.
Cats know how to open doors too.
Well, you know what? Hey, it'd probably be a better use of your money than some of the digital content on the PlayStation Network. This is going to be our topic of the week. The article comes from the New York Times, written by Eduardo Medina. The headline reads, PlayStation will delete purchase Discovery shows.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
I was against covering this, for the record, because I think this is a non-story. I was outvoted. I was told that they wanted to talk about it. I think this is a non-story. I'm putting that out on the record.
Well, I will read the article and or the notes that Matt has here, and we will go on from there. The listeners can determine for themselves, but I will explain why I think it's important to add it to the show. Sony announced that it would remove all Disney or Discovery content, including shows like Mythbusters and Deadliest Catch, from user libraries, even if they purchase the content on the PlayStation Store. This is being attributed to the content licensing agreement with content providers. More than 1,200 purchasable titles will be removed. Sony's PlayStation Network TOS does state all content provided included on the PlayStation Store is licensed on a non-exclusive and revocable basis. And why I think it's important to talk about this is because one of the biggest discussions we've had in our community is physical versus digital. And we have a lot of people like Yield, like Daryl, like Rick, like Curtis, who all like to purchase physical copies of stuff. And with with your avenues to buy physical drying up by the day, we're going to more of a digital future, which is why stuff like this matters. Tricky, why did you think this is a non-story?
Because basically what they're doing is they're removing your ability to watch Discovery content on your PlayStation. They're not removing your ability or they're not taking your money and running and taking the product away. You can still watch this content on other devices, whether that be your TV, your laptop, your mobile phone, whatever the case may be. All this is really doing is removing it so you cannot watch it on your physical PlayStation console.
So how do you watch this content if not on your PlayStation? Where do you go? On your phone or on your...
Listen, if I buy movies on Vudu, if I watch or movies or TV shows, if I buy them on Vudu or I buy them on some other apps, they're all centrally located in the same place on an app called Movies Anywhere, which takes all the digital distribution sites for all the movies and things, and they pop right on there. On Movies Anywhere, they give me the ability to watch. I can go on Amazon, and Amazon links to my my Vudu account, and I'm able to watch on Amazon Prime. I'm able to watch movies. All these services have a way of linking it because you've purchased the license to watch it. They're not removing the license to watch it. They're just removing that you could watch it on a PlayStation console. Now, is that shitty? Probably. Should PlayStation be doing that? Probably not. But this, again, this has come down to a licensing agreement where Discovery is turning around and saying, we're no longer going to allow it to be on PlayStation consoles. This is no different than Twitter and Facebook being removed from your PlayStation console because PlayStation and Twitter, their agreements no longer.
You don't have to pay.
Actually,
you don't have to pay to be on Twitter.
Alex,
you don't have to pay to be on Twitter.
Well, no. I get the paywall. I'm not arguing the paywall, but this is the same thing. Like PlayStation had to pay Twitter access to their API in order to be able to tweet out things off your console. Whatever reason, the price went up. Sony's not willing to pay for it anymore. You can no longer tweet from your console. Is it the same thing as removing content you paid for? Not necessarily, but it's the same premise. You're just losing the license to watch it on your console. I get it shitty. I'm not arguing that at all. But the way people are reacting to this is like, Sony took my money. They're not letting me, they're not compensating me for not being able to watch it on their console anymore, blah, blah, blah. Yes, you purchased it through Sony. But ultimately, that money went back to Discovery. So Discovery has your money. And if Discovery has your money, they have an obligation and a responsibility to make sure you can access that content.
Well, hold on. Not all that money went to Discovery. Sony also got a chunk of that for hosting that on the PlayStation. Like, Sony didn't just turn all that money over to Discovery.
My point...
Hold on. Yeah, let me ask Tricky a question, and then I'll let you go. Tricky, what if... And I asked you this on the group in text chat. What happens if you have a PlayStation and a TV, and that was the only way you have to access this? You bought it through the PlayStation because you could assume you could always watch it through the PlayStation. And here's the thing: that site you mentioned, that app you mentioned, to where all this stuff is just warehoused, where you can watch these licenses you have. I've never heard of that fucking app. How many people know about that?
You've never heard of Movies Anywhere?
No, I've never heard that app.
No.
when I go to log into Voodoo, it gives me several apps to log into.
Not everybody uses Voodoo, though.
No, but if you log, I'd sign out of Voodoo right now. But there are different apps you could use. Hold on.
All right,
Let me see if I can
Yield.
go to the
While
website.
he's doing this, you make your point, sir.
So the question that I have, and
I'm assuming this is coming to
Sony
me.
and or Discover, since Tricky's saying you can still access it, have either of them come out and said how PlayStation owners can access the stuff that they've bought through the PSN?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so everything that you are saying is a hypothesis.
No, it's a fact. You can still watch this content.
But no one has come out and said that they can access it. So as far as we know, with the facts that we have, is once it's off the PlayStation Store, you can't watch it. Because if that was the case, Discover would have come out to make Sony look like the bad guy and been like, hey, you can still access your stuff. Here's how you do it. And if no one's done that yet, then the people who have purchased this content is left to believe they're SOL. Because I wouldn't know where to go look. You know, can I go to discover.com through the internet, through my PlayStation web browser, and watch everything that I've bought?
Matt, sir. Tricky, did you have a response? Did you want to say something?
No. Let Matt go first because I'm still trying to get all the things. Go ahead.
All right. Well, Matt, what are your thoughts on this situation?
Regardless of where you can access it, I think we all know digital content is at the behest of the licensor. And it frankly is a scary risk, because what if tomorrow it's not, well, you can't access this not just on your PlayStation, you can't access it anywhere, or you can only access it in this very specific way that not everybody has the ability to, as the guys pointed out. I know my Steam library of 573 games one day may be gone. Steam has been active in less than 20 years. And while there certainly have been people that passed away, they face legal challenges because you're not allowed to pass on your Steam library to a next of kin. And if I die tomorrow, short of somebody knowing my password, my Steam library and all that money I spent is gone. So take that with shows. You talked about Voodoo earlier, Tricky. My brother and I share a Voodoo account. And what if one day something happens and he just, he's like, nope, you can't access it anymore. I know that's a risk that I took sharing an account with him. It's a risk from digital games and digital movies that your content may be gone. And changing the terms of how you access it is still, it's a double-edged sword. Because what if somebody says, well, the only thing I own is a PlayStation 3. I should be allowed to access it there. And long ago, PlayStation and even Nintendo turned around and said, yeah, we're not supporting these older platforms anymore. You want something else, you need to come to the new one. And there is a certain level of cybersecurity that deals with that, because you can't continue supporting old platforms. I can't play certain Microsoft games because Windows 7 is no longer supported and developers stopped updating their app for that. I see both sides of the story. It doesn't make it feel any better when they say, no, you can no longer access this content on this device. It's the reality of living in a digital world that we are.
And I guess another reason why I thought it was important to bring this up on the show is not necessarily to wag a finger at Sony, because yes, as I mentioned, this stuff is in their TOS, their terms of service, which, let's be real, most of us don't read. We just skip to the bottom because who has time to do that these days in this economy? But it goes to show you, as someone who has been very much in the swimming in the digital waters, it's kind of how I buy my games now, although I did buy the Cowabunga collection on the Switch today, just to have a physical copy of that. it is raising awareness and concern for how fast we are moving to digital. And like, I get why people want physical copies. I think any of the arguments that people have made about not liking digital and wanting to stay physical, they want the choice to buy either one. Having both is better than having just one. So I understand what people come from on that side of the argument. But I think that we need to talk about this because while this may not be anything Sony can be sued for, or, Sony, hey, does warn about it in their TOS, it doesn't make people any happier or any more. It gives people concerns about buying digital. And this conversation may have always had to come up at some point, but when you hear stuff like this and you hear, this content that I bought may not always be available, it makes people second guess how quickly they buy digital goods. It doesn't do a lot of good for Sony's business on the PlayStation Network to have this kind of stuff happen. It's bad advertising is what it is. So I think that that's why it's important to talk about, not necessarily because Sony did anything that was outside of their TOS, but because there are a lot of people who are concerned about moving from physical to digital, and this is an example of why they're afraid, which is why, like I said, a big debate in our community has been this, and I think it's something that this kind of news is important to our community. So, do you understand, Tricky, why I brought this to the table?
I understand why you brought it to the table, but to use Yield's words from earlier, it's apples and oranges, because I just sent a message to the Skype that I'm sharing my screen. I'm on my Movies Anywhere account right now. And if you guys can look, I know the audience and on Twitch, you guys are not going to see this, but I can connect my Apple TV, my Google Play and YouTube accounts, my Microsoft Movies and TV, Xfinity, Verizon, DirecTV. If I bought any movies on there, they all access there. I have my Prime Video and my Vudu account linked. And if you look on the bottom, it says I've successfully imported your movies to Disney Movies Anywhere. It used to be Vudu and Fandango used to be two different things, but I guess Vudu bought Fandango. So everything that I've purchased, I can access in one area. Now, I get the inconvenience. I get it. I'm not arguing that in any way, shape, or form. But I just looked at this as a non-story because people can still access their content, where I saw all the reactions of, I'm losing money because I paid money to Sony for this access to this content, and now I'm losing it, and I'm not going to be able to get it anymore. That's simply not true. You can access it. You just have to go through another medium to get to it.
Oh boy. What I like, making it hard to watch shit I've already bought. But Tricky, the point is, you might be able to watch this stuff if you know where to find it, which nowhere does Sony tell you, oh, hey, this content you purchased, you can watch somewhere else.
Yeah. No. I'm with you on that, on the fact that there should be clearer messaging on this, 100%. Discovery, Sony, they should come out and say, yes, you're no longer able to watch it here, but this is how you can watch it. Absolutely, Sony or Discovery or both of them should email these people or send out a message somehow, shape, or form and say, you're not losing your content. It can be accessed this way. 100%. That hasn't been done. I'm with everybody, with the pitchforks and whatnot. I'm with everybody with that. But you're not losing it. It's just you can't access it through a PlayStation console anymore. That's the real problem. You can still watch it. You just can't watch it on a PlayStation console anymore. Is that bad? Is that shitty? Yes. But this is a contract that Discovery and Sony, they just couldn't come to it anymore. The licensing went away. It is what it is. But this is part of the business world.
We can agree that this.
Hold on. Let me finish. This is different from people buying digital games because you're talking about a digital license on a PlayStation console. If they turn around and said you bought this game for $60 and you could no longer play it on the PlayStation, that's different because that's where you bought it. That's the only place you can access it. That is 100%. If they did that and removed their game, I mean, I'm going to kind of sabotage myself here, but look at PT. PT, we had it for a minute. It was free content. They revoked the license. Nobody can access PT anymore. It's that to that level, yes. Now, somebody purchased PT, that's a whole different story.
Well, you're giving examples of free things. That does not equate to something you paid for.
No, but but people are acting like you can't access this content. I think it would be a bigger story if Sony came out and says you can no longer play God of War Ragnarok on your PS4. That would stir up shit. This, you can access the content somewhere else. It's not that big of a story.
Okay, well, here's the thing. This might start the ball rolling of things disappearing from... I mean, they could always take off games and you could not have access to them. Like, that's something that could happen.
Absolutely, they could.
And this, again, raising awareness of an all-digital age. This is the problems that people... Giving people the information they need to make good decisions with their money, I think is important. So, again, whether we agree on this or not, I think having the discussion and bringing our listeners in on it is important, and allowing them to, look at the situation and more critically and say, okay, well, I was all digital, but now I'm going to have some backups for stuff that I really, really want to have. Like I said, I bought the Cowabunga collection on Switch today, so I have a physical copy of that. But I think, Tricky, you and I can both agree that this does nothing good for Sony. This just makes Sony look really bad, and their digital sales look really bad. Whether or not you can watch it somewhere else, this is bad news for Sony. This is bad publicity.
It's bad publicity, 100%. But I don't put this on Sony. I put this on Discovery and Sony not being able to come to an agreement, which is a possibility in any business agreement. You sign a contract for a certain part.
I'm not assigning blame. What I'm just saying is this looks bad for Sony.
It does, and like I said earlier, and I think some other people point out, Sony should have a better messaging system of how to do this. And how to access this content. And the fact that they haven't, I think, is a huge fail. 100%.
All right.
But
good.
Hold on. Kalis in the chat says, I just want my DVDs and N64 carts. And he says, well, ask yourself this. When you buy digital, do you or anyone you know not know the risk of having it forever?
I think this makes people question I think when you buy digital, you have to have the idea or you have to be aware that, hey, this kind of stuff, like, what am I really buying? Am I buying for access to the game or am I buying the game? And that's been one of those things. It's been a big argument for people for buying physical. And it's just one of those things that, again, like I said, it's an important topic or addition to the debate of that, the ongoing debate, because we are moving, like all these companies are moving further and further towards all digital. So we have to have these conversations because that way people can then look back on their purchases or their future purchases and apply what knowledge they have to that.
All right. Okay.
Oh, I was just going to say, Matt or Yield, do either one of you have anything to add to this?
No.
Yield, am I crazy in my argument?
I don't 100% agree with you.
Okay. That's fair.
I think and the thing is, again, being a Steam predominant player, knowing that I risk losing all my games at some point in the future, we've always talked about if there's some sort of communication plan ahead of time or clear communication, then that's all we can ask for in any digital platform aspect ever. There's still something to be said about physical being superior in the aspect of retention. However, this world is going digital only. It's a matter of time. We're going to get there. Hopefully, companies have some sort of roadmap to handle that down the line.
All right. One thing I'll say is I did see a story, which I just remembered now, that we're going to have to cover next week because we're getting along on time. Did you guys see the story about how people's PlayStation accounts were getting permanently terminated and blocked?
It was a bug.
Yeah.
And it was solved. So that's why it wasn't included.
10-4.
All right. Well, if that's all from the chat and all from everybody else, let's go ahead and get out of here. But first, let us do some housekeeping and give some shout-outs. Tricky, since you usually go last, why don't you go first this week?
I will give a shout-out to everybody that showed up last week and showed love this week. The fact that we're over 600 episodes, it really, really boggles my mind, and the fact that like people actually care about what we say. Also, side note, because of how tired I was, we didn't do the quiz this week, obviously. I am working on the quiz, and it's going to be in the next couple episodes. I don't know exactly when because my work schedule has been erratic. But also, I passed $1,000 on Extra Life, so that means that V is going to have to play a game on the Prove a Gamer stream. So look forward to that for the announcement for that. But shout out to V, who does incredible work. Even gave me a little crap for posting the Patreon episode before she could. Shout out to Matt, Alex, Yield. You know, you guys are one of the reasons why I love doing the show. It's that and the fans. And speaking of the fans, I got Sweet Mama D, who's sitting patiently in the room waiting for me to get done so she can spend some time with me. Kayla says happy 30th anniversary to Doom. Okay. Didn't know Doom was 30
Today's
years old.
30 years old. The original Doom.
Maybe The Rock can come back and make a better movie this time.
Ouch.
I don't know. The Rock has it in him to make good movies.
Oh,
Rock
come
me.
on.
Oh.
The rundown was great.
Yeah.
How many attempts at making movies has he had to get the one?
Well,
Yeah.
luckily it was one of his first ones.
You guys want to hear
I don't know how. I heard Jungle Cruise was good.
you guys want to hear a really raunchy joke I saw on TikTok about The Rock?
No.
No.
Is he going to get us kicked off Spotify?
It might get us kicked off TikTok.
Well, then let's save it for after
by
the
all
show.
means, yes.
All right. Shout out to Sweet Mama D. Shout out to the goddess. Shout out to everybody. That's it.
Matt,
Shout out to my girl Zelda here, who is being very nudgy because it's that time of night. Shout out to V, progressing along with her recovery, so that's going well. Shout out to the fans, Caneless, Dex, Dos Andres, saw you in chat tonight. If I miss anybody, I apologize. Shout out to the Channel 3 community. Come on over to channel3.gg to have some fun and gamify your social media. Shout out to Alex, Tricky Yield. Thank you for another good night of podcasting.
I have some shout out DLC.
all right.
Shout out to the New York Rangers, who are kicking ass just in the season, and are currently up 2-0 to those bitch ass Kings from Los Angeles.
All right. Yield, your shout out, sir.
Shout out to Tricky, Alex, and Matt for recording this evening. Shout out to everybody who was hanging out in the Twitch chat. Another shout out to everybody who was hanging out with us at 600. A shout out to everybody who took time to wish me happy birthday on Facebook. And that'll do it this week.
All right. And I want to give my shout outs here, finish up the show. First and foremost, our awesome community. Thank you all very much for helping power us past 600. And for those of us who joined, or for those who joined in the celebration on Twitch, and anybody who's downloaded the show and just taken part of it. For anyone who has kind of been part of our community in the lead up to 600, and for anyone who joins after, we thank you all for your continued support. It means everything to us. I'll give a shout out to Tricky and to Yield and to Matt for recording tonight. Extra special shout out to Matt for putting together the agenda and doing his Cliff's Notes on the articles. And I know I said earlier that Christmas Vacation is the best Christmas movie, and I actually kind of have to take that back because while it's very good and it's definitely, I think, would have to probably say number 2, Muppet Christmas Carol is clearly number 1. So at least for me, it's my personal favorite. So I did momentarily forget about A Muppet Christmas Carol. But last but not least, give a shout out to my awesome and loving girlfriend, Ashley. I love you, hun. So yeah, if there's nothing else this week, we thank you all for joining us for 601. We'll see you all next week and keep getting those trophies. Bye.
I'm gonna go eat some peanut butter pie.
He didn't steal my line.
I heard it's a Christmas movie.
See you in hell, Matt.
The theme song is Venus by the band Even off their album Zenith. Permission granted by the band and 12 Stone Records. You can find them on Facebook by going to www.facebook.com/evenphilippines.